I had an idea with my friend Hugo. He and I had talked for some years about a story about a character who was somewhat inspired by a friend of ours, and we had an act of a story that was based on that, but we never knew what was going to happen next. And separately, I had this thought that I wanted to make a film that was that was sort of inspired by things I'd been reading that were European. One of the first things that Zero, the lobby boy, learns is that Monsieur Gustave, he isn't just the guy who runs the hotel and arranges everything for everybody. He also has special relationships with the old women who stay there, and that some of them, it's apparently really just come there because that's their time to spend with him, and one of these women who he's sort of in, or, I mean, she's certainly in love with him on some level, and I think you could say that, and he sort of is with her too. But anyway, they're very close. Well, however it ought to be described, and this is her character is called Madame D. She's that played by Tilda Swinton, but 85 years old, and in the story she dies, and she leaves Gustave a painting that her family is not aware she has left to him. She's sort of secretly left him this painting, which is the most valuable piece that is in their vast collection. It's a very rich family, and and the story begins when he's left that painting and her family objects to it, and that's the begin. You know, they're not going to let him have it, and that's sort of that's what launches us into the story because he steals it. But I don't think he considers it stealing because it really is his. Rafe immediately reacted that he thought Tony was perfect. Um, and that's the way he treated him when he saw him, that this was the real guy, this real character, and he loved Tony. That was just very nice. And also, you know, Monsieur Gustave is his mentor, and Rafe took on that role with Tony right off the bat, and Rafe knows everything about what it's like to be an actor and what that experience is like, and how that what you may feel that somebody else may not understand, or what you may need to do that somebody else may not understand. He was a great. He filled that role for Tony, and he gave himself over to that, and I could see Tony loved Rafe instantly. It's funny because I'm saying this that it's really that it's not based on necessarily on real life, but in fact, a movie like this, the design of the movie is almost all inspired by things in real life, and the process of preparing the movie was in part traveling to different places in Eastern Europe and gathering ideas for what would go into this hotel. In the end, it was a hotel that we needed to kind of create because it doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't really exist anymore anywhere. And we did sort of take things from all sorts of places across Europe and recreate them in the movie. But it's a kind of intensive, meticulous process of doing that, and it's time consuming. But I have people who I've worked with for a long time who I think are tuned into that. And I have a director of photography I worked with for many many years, or since the first movie I made. I've worked with a few different production designers who are all good friends over the years. The last two movies I've done have been with Adam Stockhausen, who also worked on Darjeeling Limited before doing Moonrise Kingdom and this new movie. And we work very closely together, and we spend a lot of time preparing. Milena Canonero, who did the costumes, she and I have worked together for years and years and years as well. And Milena knows I mean, I think as well as anybody anywhere, um, what to do with a period picture and how to make it all happen and get these things done, as well as being one of the great designers ever in movies. Um, so in terms of those things, I feel like I have I really do have a very strong group to work with who I'm in sync with. Along the way, we stumbled across, after looking at all kinds of different things to adapt, we found a place in this small city called Görlitz that's actually half of the city's in Germany and half is in Poland. It's on a river, and and we found a department store that was no longer that was empty. I mean, it was not abandoned, and it had been a functioning department store only a few years earlier. But it was a place built, it's sort of Art Nouveau style building from 1907, I think, something like that. And enormous and empty. And when we went to the place, I realized, well, we can do the inside of the hotel we can do right here, and we have a lot to work with, and we have things to build in here, but this is a great basis. And we sort of designed our production around that discovery. And as we went forward, we sort of located everything. In fact, we needed this. The one thing that we really struggled to find, and at one point we almost considered just going to Budapest where there's an existing thermal baths, but because we couldn't find a good old thermal baths. We'd found a couple that were in Germany that we might have done, but then we finally located, maybe 4.5 minutes walk from this department store, an abandoned one. And it was a ruin, and it was kind of falling apart, but it was the kind of ruin that we could work with, and it was in the right spot, 4.5 minutes away, and everything in the movie sort of came together in that way. We built it all around this one town. Our prison was the next town over, but it was great. And the thing I also that was felt very right about it was Görlitz is at this intersection of Germany, Poland, and Czech Republic. It's the beginning of Eastern Europe, but it's really is in it, and that's what our story was about. And our story was about what happened in those places. Where we shot was East Germany, and so the kind of transitions that we talk about, that this is where it was. In fact, we're on the edge of the Sudetenland in that place, and that's really where the war begins. And some of the events of the movie are really connected to that event and that kind of situation. So we found. I feel like we found a sort of ideal place to make the movie the way we had in mind.